So the main purpose of our project is multimodal interactions inside VR. The perfect environment that I thought that would be very good fit for it, it would be game development. Currently, game development, it uses a huge number of web menus. And when you are creating a game, you have to open 3 or 4 sub-menus to try to figure out what you want to choose. So what I envision and what I think the future of VR will be, it will be like a development environment where the user just interacts with his voice or with his eyes or with controllers to be able to do the tasks that he wants to do. So why we chose virtual reality? It has enhanced immersion, enhanced interactivity, accessibility, communication, and greater realism. We'll talk about them in detail. So it has this enhanced immersion because the way that we interact with multiple senses is the same way we interact in real life. For example, if you want to look at something or to point to it, we say look at that, or we say look at that. So we're actually using our eyes and at the same time using our controllers, or in this case our hands, to point at something. Same. You enhance interactivity because when you're using multiple modalities, for example, if you're using your voice, for example, if on the other side is an AI, you tell it, for example, try to place something here and try to give it a shape, it will be doing it, which at the same time increases productivity and, of course, accessibility for people who are having disabilities. A lot of questions that I had during the symposium when I was showing the people the demo, you made this project for people with disabilities? Actually not, but they have greater accessibility that actually people with disabilities can do. For example, this person cannot move. For example, if in a virtual environment he can move using his voice or his eyes, that's actually great for them. And better communication. As I said in the previous slide, if you're communicating only using your voice, it's kind of misleading. But if you're in virtual reality, people can actually see your eyes, they can see your hand movements, and they can guess actually what's going on and get a better idea. And of course, greater realism, because you're incorporating all of your senses when interacting with the environment. So some of the disadvantages that we had, and some of the disadvantages of multimodal interactions in general, they are quite complex. Actually adding them together and making them interact with each other is quite hard. And I made a baseline model to be added to every environment, but still it needs a considerable number of time of coding to be able to be done. And of course, cost. Multimodal interaction, for example, if you're using VR gloves, that's $20,000. If you're using our taste is still that's a research project and it's still quite expensive. So actually incorporating them together is quite expensive. And of course, technical limitations and user discomfort. Because still, so far, till lately, speech to text was not actually good. As I've said in a research before, it's actually most of the users who use this way, text to speech to text made them frustrated because they couldn't get exactly what they wanted. And of course, people have some concerns about the multimodal interactions. For example, the EEG is using the brainwaves. So some people okay, do they actually reading my brain, what they are doing? So some people have some concerns about that. So the problems that we are trying to do is we are trying to provide a way for the person to be more immersed in the environment and to find an alternative web-style menus, and we applied it to game development, and to find a way that the user can seamlessly work and have a seamless workflow inside the VR without actually having to look at a 2D screen and program. So what's actually the most functionality that game developers do during game development? It's selection of objects, manipulation of objects, creation of objects, and movement. So What we have done, we're incorporating using the most three used modalities, which is eye, voice, and controllers. And we made the user to be able to select an object using the object name or just looking at the object and select it. We made the user to be able to pull an object, push it, grab it, rotate it, and apply material to it or apply a script to it. User can create an object using his voice only and give it a name. And he can move by looking at the place and moving there, or go to a certain object he doesn't know its creation, and he can go to it. So, for the controllers, we use the HC Vive and OpenXR toolkit and OpenXR default input settings. For the eyes, we use the raycast, which is located at the middle of the camera. We thought about using gaze, but after thinking about it, the user actually, gaze moves a lot, even if he's trying to focus an object. So we used a crosshair that's located at the center of the camera, and you can change its opacity, so it's really simple and doesn't affect much as a user. And he can look at an object and say, like, select that, and he will know where he's selecting. And the voice is a little complicated. We tried to make an infrastructure that's used in Python, a script as its backend, because for a future work, if I'm trying to, for example, implement a machine learning model on the text, and for example, that model does a classification and gives the result of classification back to the C#. So we have a trigger. The user clicks the trigger and holds it and says the command that he wants. Once it's done, it's saved to a map.map file and runs a Python script using a free open source library called speech recognition. And the text is returned back to the C# script, and it's processed and the commands are run. So now I've pre-recorded a demo because actually I had many functionalities, like the original video is over 15 minutes. So I had to do a lot of cutting. So that's 5 minutes demo, I believe, which includes most of the functionalities. The environment, I tried to make it as abstract as possible because I had a scene before, but actually detecting the objects in the scene is very crowded, so it's very hard. So here I'm selecting the object by its name. The cube here, I give it the name server. It's selected. The other command that I did is grabbing an object by its name. So once I do so, for example, if the object has a gravity, which is a rigid body, once I say grab, the gravity is disabled and it comes to my hand, which can be manipulated. Once I leave it, the gravity returns to it. I can go to any object given its name. As I said, move to gold, and I started moving to the object called gold. And now, because it was part of the game, the first part, I created something called Fireball just for playing. So here, I'm actually saying Fireball. It's actually still incorporating. So we created that object. I moved to the place here just to see the fireball shooting, and I said command shoot. And the fireball started tracking the selected object and started going to it. Now I'm looking, using my eyes, I looked at the cube and said select that. It selected the cube. I can rotate an object in the X, Y, or Z axis. I can say rotate up, down, left, right, or clockwise, counterclockwise. I can create primitive bodies in Unity. For example, I can create a cube, which should be shown right now, and I give it the cube name alpha. What's that by voice? I said create cube alpha. Another one, I applied another primitive body and called sphere. Voice is really long, but I'm saying the voice command, and it created the sphere. Also, if you have a prefabs in your project, for example, I have a prefab of a tree. I said import prefab tree, wood, its name is wood. It actually imported it from the prefabs folder and put it in my environment. Now, I selected it using, I select that and selected it, then I'm looking at the place on the screen, and I said transfer there. And the selected object moved to the location that I wanted to move to. Yeah, so now I have script folder, I have material folder. I said apply script galaxy, apply material galaxy, and it's applied to the cube. Now I'm saying apply script bullets. I have a bullets script that it's done and it's running. And it starts shooting bullets. What else? Oh. Also, I'm rotating it clockwise. Yeah, and the last functionality for me is instead of moving to an object, if it's far away, I can set teleport to that object until it starts to, and it teleports me to it. Oh yeah, plus push and pull. Like I said, I can say push, and it moves away relative to my location. I can say stop, and it freezes in its location. It can also freeze in its rotation. And when I say pull, it can come towards my location. That's pretty much it with the project.